My name is Marcus Thompson, and I'd been the family disappointment for exactly 7 years. Not because I'd failed at anything, but because I'd refused to fail the way they expected me to. When Grandma died in 2017, she left me everything. The house in Denver. Her investment portfolio. Her business connections. Her final words to me were simple: "Don't let them make you small, Marcus. Build something that matters." My brother Ethan got nothing. My parents got nothing. The will was clear, witnessed, notarized, and completely legal. Grandma had made her choice based on years of watching Ethan bully me, watching my parents enable it, watching them treat me like the problem child for asking questions and challenging their narrow view of success. Ethan was the golden child. 6'2", captain of his college lacrosse team, MBA from a state school that he never stopped mentioning. He joined Dad's manufacturing company, Thompson Enterprises, right after graduation and immediately started treating it like his personal kingdom. "I'm building the legacy," he'd say at every family gathering. Carrying on Dad's vision. Being a real Thompson. What he was actually doing was running Dad's company into the ground. I knew because I'd been watching the financials closely since 2018. Dad had made Ethan CFO within 2 years, and the quarterly reports that crossed my desk, sent by my silent partner arrangement that they knew nothing about, showed a consistent pattern of declining margins, bloated executive compensation, and questionable vendor relationships. But I never said anything. I just smiled and let them think I was living off Grandma's money, doing nothing productive, being the lazy failure who couldn't hold down a real job. The truth was more complicated. After Grandma's funeral, I spent 6 months grieving and thinking. Then I took her $890,000 investment portfolio and hired the best wealth manager in Denver. Within a year, I'd turned it into $1.4 million through careful tech investments and real estate plays. By 2020, I had $2.8 million and a decision to make. That's when I learned Thompson Enterprises was about to go bankrupt. Dad had borrowed against everything: the equipment, the property, even his house. The company needed a $2 million capital infusion to survive. The banks had said no. Private equity wanted 60% ownership. Dad was going to lose everything he'd built over 35 years. I could have let it happen. After years of being dismissed, mocked, and treated like I was worthless, watching Dad's company collapse would have been poetic justice. Instead, I called my attorney. "I want to make an anonymous investment," I told him. $2 million. Silent partnership. No board seat. No decision-making authority. Just capital in exchange for 35% equity. "Why?" he asked. "Because I'm not them," I said. "And because I want to see what they do when they think they've been saved by someone who isn't me." The deal went through in March 2020. Thompson Enterprises received a $2 million cash infusion from Mountain Capital Group, a shell company I'd created specifically for this purpose. The partnership agreement was ironclad. I provided capital, they provided quarterly financial reports, and I had the right to dissolve the partnership with 90 days notice if certain financial metrics weren't met. Dad never knew I was his silent partner. Neither did Ethan. They thought some investment firm had seen potential in their struggling manufacturing business and decided to take a chance. What I actually saw was an opportunity to document exactly how badly they'd mismanaged my investment. From 2020 to 2024, I watched Thompson Enterprises from the shadows. The $2 million injection saved the company. For about 8 months. Then the old patterns returned. Ethan gave himself a $340,000 annual salary for a company doing $4.2 million in revenue. Dad took distributions that the cash flow couldn't support. They hired Ethan's college friends for executive positions at inflated salaries. The quarterly reports I received told the whole story. Revenue stayed flat. Expenses climbed. The healthy 18% profit margins from 2019 became 6% by 2021. Then 3% by 2022. By 2023, the company was operating at a loss again. They were slowly burning through my $2 million investment, treating it like free money instead of capital that needed to generate returns. Meanwhile, I was building something real. I'd taken the remaining funds from Grandma's estate, about $800,000 after the Thompson investment, and launched a consulting practice. Business operations consulting, specifically helping small manufacturers improve efficiency and margins. Everything I'd learned watching Dad's company make mistakes became valuable knowledge I could sell to companies that actually wanted to improve. Within 2 years I had 12 clients. By 2024, I had 38 clients across Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, generating $1.8 million in annual revenue with 42% margins. I had a team of 6 consultants working under me. I'd been featured in Denver Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list. I'd spoken at 3 industry conferences. I was doing exactly what Grandma told me to do, building something that mattered. But I never told my family. When they asked what I did, I'd say, consulting, in a vague way that made it sound unimpressive. When they asked where I lived, I'd mention my modest 2-bedroom condo in Capitol Hill. Not the fact that I also owned 2 rental properties in Boulder generating $6,400 monthly in passive income. I let them think I was barely scraping by, living off what remained of Grandma's small inheritance, doing meaningless work that didn't require real business acumen. Because I wanted to see how long they'd keep dismissing me. The answer turned out to be, until the very moment it destroyed them. Thanksgiving 2024 started the way it always did, with Ethan holding court. We gathered at my parents' house in Highlands Ranch, the same house Dad had nearly lost in 2020, the same house that my anonymous investment had indirectly saved by keeping his company solvent enough to maintain the mortgage payments. Ethan arrived in his new Audi Q7. Just got it, he announced to everyone. Business has been incredible this year. We're projecting $5.2 million in revenue. I'd seen the Q3 report. They'd done $3.1 million in the first 9 months, which meant they'd need to do $2.1 million in Q4 to hit that projection. Last year's Q4 had been $890,000. The projection was fantasy. That's amazing, honey, Mom said, beaming. You've really turned that company around. I said nothing. I was helping Mom in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for the stuffing. Marcus, are you still doing that consulting thing? Mom asked in the tone people use when they're being polite about something they consider pointless. Yeah, I said. Still doing that. Any big clients? A few. Well, that's nice. It's good to stay busy. Ethan walked into the kitchen, grabbed a beer from the fridge. You know, Marcus, if you ever want a real job, I could probably find you something at the company. Entry level, obviously. Maybe accounts receivable or something. Thanks, I said. I'll keep that in mind. I'm serious. You can't just coast on Grandma's money forever. Eventually, you're going to need actual career experience. I smiled. You're probably right. Dinner was the same performance it had been for years. Dad at the head of the table talking about the business. Ethan next to him interjecting with strategic insights and growth plans. Mom praising both of them. Me at the far end, essentially invisible unless someone needed to make a point about work ethic or ambition. Then came the moment that changed everything. We were discussing Grandma's estate. Or rather, Ethan was complaining about it again the way he did every Thanksgiving. It's still just insane to me that she left everything to Marcus, Ethan said, attacking his turkey with more force than necessary. I mean, what did he ever do to deserve that? She had her reasons, Dad said diplomatically. What reasons? I was the one who visited her every month. I was the one who helped her with her bills, drove her to appointments. Marcus barely saw her. This was a lie. I'd seen Grandma twice a week for the last 5 years of her life. We'd have lunch, talk about business, discuss her investments. Ethan had visited her exactly 4 times in that entire period, always when he needed something. Maybe she valued different things, I said quietly. Like what? Laziness? Underachievement? Ethan laughed. Come on, Marcus. You have to admit it's pretty ridiculous. You're living off her memory while I'm actually building something. You're building something, I repeated. At Thompson Enterprises. Exactly. A real legacy. Real value. Not just sitting on inherited money and pretending to be a consultant. Dad's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, silenced it. What kind of revenue is your consulting practice doing? Ethan asked, smirking. Ballpark. I could have told him. $1.8 million annually. 6 employees. 40% margins. Client retention rate of 94%. But I didn't. Enough, I said. Enough to do what? Pay rent on that tiny condo. He laughed. I'm doing $5.2 million this year, Marcus. Through actual business leadership. through making hard decisions and taking real risks. With whose money? I asked quietly. Ethan stopped mid-bite. What? The $2 million that saved the company in 2020. Where did that come from? An investment firm. Mountain Capital Group. They saw our potential. Right. And what have you done with their investment? Built the company back. We're profitable again. This was another lie. The most recent quarterly report, Q3 2024, which I'd received 2 weeks ago, showed a $127,000 operating loss. Are you? I asked. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said. I'm sure you're right. Mom jumped in. Boys, it's Thanksgiving. Can we please just... No, I want to hear this, Ethan said, putting down his fork. Marcus, do you have something to say about how I run the business? I think you do exactly what Dad taught you, I said carefully. Spend when you're winning, spend more when you're losing, and never question whether the spending is actually generating returns. Dad's face reddened. That's enough. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've taken a $2 million investment and turned it into a company that's losing money again. You've given yourself a salary that the revenue can't support. You've hired executives based on friendship instead of competence. And you're projecting growth numbers that have no basis in your actual performance. The table went silent. How would you even know that? Ethan demanded. Public information. Basic industry knowledge. Pattern recognition. You don't know anything about running a real business, Ethan said, his voice rising. You're a failure living off Grandma's memory. You always have been. She made a mistake leaving you that money, and you've proven it every single day by doing nothing meaningful with your life. Dad's phone rang. He looked at it, his expression changing. It's Michael Chin. Michael Chin was his corporate attorney. On Thanksgiving? Mom asked. Dad answered. Michael, let's kiss. What? No, what do you mean dissolve? His face went pale. Wait, Mountain Capital wants to, all of it? They can't, 90 days notice clause. Yes, I remember, but, the entire $1.8 million. He looked at me. Our eyes met across the table. They're exercising it now? Today. Michael, it's Thanksgiving, surely we can... No, I understand the contract is clear, but... 6% equity return over 4 years, yes, I know it's below the threshold, but... His hand was shaking. Send me the paperwork. We'll talk Monday. He hung up. The table was completely silent. What happened? Mom asked. Mountain Capital Group is dissolving the partnership, Dad said, his voice hollow. They're invoking the performance clause. We have 90 days to return their initial $1.8 million investment, plus their equity share of whatever we can liquidate. That's impossible, Ethan said. We don't have $1.8 million in cash. We'd have to sell equipment, probably take a loan against the property, maybe even. We'd have to sell the company, Dad finished. Or find another investor. In 90 days. Right before Christmas. I took a bite of my stuffing. It was perfectly seasoned. Why would they do this now? Mom asked. Why today? I pulled out my phone. Opened my email. Showed them the message I'd sent from the table 15 minutes earlier, while Ethan was calling me a failure. 2. Michael Chin, Thompson Corporate Counsel. From Marcus Thompson, Managing Partner, Mountain Capital Group. Subject: Partnership Dissolution, Thompson Enterprises. Time sent: 5:47 p.m. Michael, please initiate dissolution proceedings for the Thompson Enterprises partnership per Section 7.3 of our agreement. The company has failed to meet the minimum 8% annual equity return threshold for 3 consecutive years. I'm exercising our right to withdraw all capital with 90 days' notice. Prepare the paperwork. I want this processed by Monday morning. Marcus. Ethan read it. Then read it again. His face went from confusion to comprehension to horror in about 10 seconds. You, he whispered. Your Mountain Capital? I'm the lazy failure living off Grandma's memory, I said calmly. While you built the real legacy. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. You invested in my company? Dad demanded. You've been spying on us? Ethan shouted. Marcus, why would you? Mom started. I held up my hand. They actually stopped. Let me explain how this works, I said, my voice level and cold. In March 2020, Thompson Enterprises was 90 days from bankruptcy. Dad had borrowed against everything. The banks wouldn't help. Private equity wanted to gut the company. You were done. We would have found a way, Dad started. You wouldn't have. I saw the financials. You were finished. I pulled out my tablet, opened a folder. I created Mountain Capital Group specifically to invest in your company. $2 million. Anonymous. Silent partnership. I asked for nothing except quarterly financial reports and the right to dissolve if you couldn't generate an 8% annual return on my investment. Why? Dad asked, and he actually sounded hurt. Because despite everything, despite years of being dismissed and mocked and treated like I was worthless, I didn't want to watch you lose what you'd built. I thought maybe, just maybe, a second chance would inspire you to actually run the company well. I pulled up the first financial report. Here's Q2 2020, right after my investment. Revenue, $4.1 million annually. Operating margin, 14%. Healthy. Recovering. You could have built on that. I swiped to the next report. Q4 2020. Ethan gets a $340,000 salary. For a company doing $4.2 million in revenue. That's an 8% salary load for a single executive. Absurd by any industry standard. I earned that, Ethan started. Did you? Let's see. I kept swiping. Q2 2021. You hire Bradley Morrison as VP of Operations. $180,000. Bradley was your fraternity brother who got fired from his last job for incompetence. Within 6 months, your operational costs increased by 22%. I showed them the graph. Q4 2021. You hire Kevin Zhang as Director of Business Development. $165,000. Kevin was your college roommate. In 18 months with the company, he closed exactly 0 new contracts. But he did enjoy the company car you gave him. Those were strategic hires, Ethan said weakly. Strategic nepotism. There's a difference. I pulled up another chart. Here's your revenue by quarter. See how it peaks in Q4 2020 at $1.2 million, then gradually declines? By Q4 2023, you're doing $890,000. That's a 26% drop in quarterly revenue over 3 years. Dad was staring at the screen like it was showing him footage of a car crash. I didn't realize it had gotten that bad. That's because Ethan kept telling you everything was fine. That you were building the legacy. That the investments in executive salaries and office renovations and company vehicles were all necessary for growth. I looked at Ethan. You spent $87,000 renovating the executive suite in 2022, while your operating margins were 4%. We needed to project success. You needed to actually be successful. There's a difference. I pulled up the final report. Q3 2024. Revenue, $1.04 million for the quarter. Operating loss, $127,000. You're burning cash. For years after I saved you, you're right back where you started. We can fix this, Ethan said, but his voice had lost all its confidence. Give us more time. We'll cut costs, improve margins. You've had 4 years. You've burned through my $2 million investment by treating it like free money instead of capital that needed to generate returns. The partnership agreement was clear. 8% annual equity return minimum. You've averaged 6%. You're in breach. Marcus, Dad said, and his voice cracked. You're going to destroy the company. Everything I've built. Is that what you want? No, I said quietly. What I wanted was for you to prove me wrong. I wanted you to take my investment and build something sustainable. I wanted to see Ethan actually become the business leader he claims to be. I wanted you to succeed without knowing I was helping you, so I could finally believe that maybe, you actually had the skills to match your arrogance. I closed the tablet. Instead, you proved exactly what I suspected. You're mediocre businessmen who got lucky for a few years, then mistook that luck for competence. You don't know how to operate lean. You don't understand margin management. You hire based on loyalty instead of talent. And when someone tries to help you, you take their money and waste it on vanity projects while telling yourself you're building a legacy. So this is revenge, Ethan said bitterly. Because you're jealous that Dad made me CFO. Because Grandma liked you better. Because we didn't treat you like you were special. No, I said. This is accountability. I gave you capital. You wasted it. The contract allows me to withdraw. I'm withdrawing. Right before Christmas, Mom said quietly. You're destroying your father's company right before Christmas. I sent the dissolution notice today because today is when Ethan called me a failure for the last time, I said. Because I'm done being the family joke while you burn through my money. Because the performance metrics don't lie and I'm tired of pretending they do. I stood up. You have 90 days. Sell equipment, find another investor, liquidate and dissolve. I don't care. But my $1.8 million plus equity share needs to be returned by February 22, 2025. After that, I file for breach and force involuntary liquidation. Marcus, please, Dad said. Can we talk about this? Work something out. We did work something out. In 2020, you signed a contract. I held up my end by providing capital. You didn't hold up yours by generating returns. There's nothing left to talk about. I grabbed my coat from the chair. Where are you going? Mom asked. Home. I have a business to run. A real one. With actual profit margins and employees who earn their salaries. You're going to regret this, Ethan said, and there was real venom in his voice. Destroying your own family over money. Grandma would be ashamed of you. I stopped at the door. Turn back. Grandma told me 2 things before she died. First, don't let you make me small. Second, build something that matters. I looked at each of them. I did both. You're the ones who should be ashamed. You had every advantage. Dad's company, my silent investment, years of industry relationships. And you still couldn't make it work. Because you were too busy congratulating yourselves to actually do the work. I opened the door. You have 90 days. I suggest you spend them finding a buyer instead of explaining to each other why this is somehow my fault. I left. Behind me, I could hear Ethan starting to shout, Mom starting to cry, and Dad trying to call Michaelchen back. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from my business partner, Rebecca. Rebecca, happy Thanksgiving. How's dinner with the family? I smiled. Me, interesting. Tell everyone I'll be back in the office Monday. We need to discuss the Thompson Enterprises liquidation. Rebecca, wait, your family's company? The one you were? Me, yep. 90 days. Get me a list of potential buyers and an asset appraisal by Wednesday. Rebecca, on it. You okay? I looked back at my parents' house. Through the window, I could see Ethan gesturing wildly, Dad sitting with his head in his hands, Mom clutching the table. Me, I'm perfect. See you Monday. The first 48 hours were chaos. Saturday morning, Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. Marcus, we need to talk. Please. This is your family's livelihood. Call me back. Saturday afternoon, Mom called. Marcus, whatever we said to hurt you, I'm sorry. But this is too far. Your father is beside himself. Please just talk to us. Saturday evening, Ethan texted, You're a vindictive piece of shit and everyone knows it now. Hope you're happy destroying the family. I didn't respond to any of them. Sunday morning, Michaelchen called. Marcus, I need to discuss the timeline. Your father is asking if there's any flexibility on the 90-day notice. There isn't, I said. The contract is clear. He's willing to negotiate. Perhaps extended payment terms? A gradual equity buyout over 18 months instead of a lump sum. The contract specifies return of capital within 90 days of dissolution notice. Negotiation isn't an option. Marcus, I have to advise you that forcing a fire sale during the holiday season will significantly reduce the recovery value. You'll get less money. I'm aware. But I'll get my money faster and the company will face consequences for 4 years of mismanagement. Both outcomes are acceptable to me. Silence on the line. Then, this is going to destroy your relationship with your family. That happened years ago. They just didn't notice because I was useful as the family failure. Now they'll have to find someone else to punch down on. Understood. I'll proceed with the paperwork. You should expect a formal asset appraisal by Wednesday and a preliminary liquidation plan by Friday. Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Monday brought the public phase. Dad had to inform the employees that the company was facing a potential sale or liquidation. 23 people who depended on Thompson Enterprises for their livelihoods suddenly faced the possibility of unemployment in February. The Denver Business Journal picked up the story by Tuesday. Local manufacturing firm faces uncertain future after silent partner withdraws. My phone started ringing. Other business owners, competitors, potential buyers. Everyone wanted to know the real story. I told them the same thing. Investment didn't meet performance thresholds. Partnership dissolved per contract terms. Thompson Enterprises has 90 days to settle. Wednesday, the asset appraisal came back. Thompson Enterprises had $1.3 million in hard assets, equipment, inventory, property lease rights. To reach $1.8 million, they'd need to liquidate everything and still fall $500,000 short. Their only option was to find a buyer for the entire company. Fast. Thursday, Ethan called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "You've won, okay?" he said. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been yelling. "You've destroyed the company and proven you're smarter than everyone. Congratulations. Are you satisfied?" "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I gave you $2 million in 4 years. You destroyed it by being incompetent. We made mistakes. We can fix them. Just give us more time." "No. Marcus, there are 23 families depending on this company. People with mortgages and kids and—" "I know. I actually looked at the employee roster, unlike you. Angela Martinez, accounts receivable, 3 kids. Robert Chin, operations manager, supporting his elderly parents. Jennifer Lewis just bought her first house 6 months ago." I paused. "I know exactly who you're about to hurt. And it's on you, not me." "How is it on me?" "You're the one pulling your investment." "I'm pulling my investment because you failed to meet contractual performance metrics for 3 consecutive years. You spent my capital on executive salaries and office renovations instead of growth and sustainability. You hired your friends instead of qualified professionals. Every single one of those decisions was yours. Every consequence flows from your choices. I'm begging you. You called me a failure living off grandma's memory. 48 hours ago. At Thanksgiving dinner. In front of our entire family." My voice stayed level. "Did you think there would be no consequence? Did you think you could take my money, waste it, insult me, and I'd just keep subsidizing your mediocrity forever? I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please. Apologies don't generate returns. Good business practices do. You had 4 years to learn that. You didn't. So now you face the market consequences of your failure. What do you want? What would it take for you to reconsider?" I thought about it. "Nothing. There's nothing you can offer that would change my mind. Because this isn't about money anymore. This is about you learning that actions have consequences. That calling someone a failure doesn't make you successful. That taking someone's help and then mocking them is a strategic mistake. So this is just ego. You're destroying lives because I hurt your feelings. No. I'm exercising my contractual rights because you breached performance thresholds. Your interpretation of my motives is irrelevant. The numbers don't lie." I pulled up the spreadsheet. 4-year average return, 6.1%. Contract minimum, 8%. Material breach, 1.9 percentage points. Dissolution justified. You're a robot. You know that. You're hiding behind spreadsheets because you don't want to admit you're doing this to hurt us. I'm doing this because it's the correct business decision. If that also demonstrates to you what failure actually looks like, the real kind with financial consequences, then that's a bonus." He hung up. Friday, a potential buyer emerged. Cross Mountain Manufacturing, a larger firm looking to acquire Thompson's client list and equipment. They offered $1.4 million for the whole company. Dad called. "Marcus, we got an offer. $1.4 million. If you're willing to take that plus the $500,000 we can raise from selling our house, we can settle the full amount." "Sell your house. It's the only way. We've mortgaged everything else." I did the math. Their house was worth maybe $850,000 with about $290,000 remaining on the mortgage. After selling costs, they'd net around $530,000. Combined with the $1.4 million offer, that was $1.93 million. Enough to cover my $1.8 million plus about $130,000 in legal fees and costs. They'd be left with nothing. No company. No house. Starting over at 64 years old. "The offer is acceptable," I said. "Have Michael send me the purchase agreement for review." "Marcus." Dad's voice broke. This is everything. Our whole life. Yes, I said. It is. How can you do this to your own father? How could you let Ethan call me a failure for 7 years? How could you watch him waste my investment and say nothing? How could you sit there at Thanksgiving and smile while he mocked me for living off Grandma's memory, money I used to save your company? We didn't know. That's the point. You didn't know because you never asked. You never cared what I was actually doing. You just assumed I was failing because that fit your narrative. And when I was secretly succeeding, when I was literally funding your survival, you thanked me by treating me like I was worthless. Silence. Enjoy the consequences of your assumptions, I said. Michael will send the paperwork. I hung up. The sale closed on February 18, 2025. 4 days before the deadline. Cross Mountain Manufacturing acquired Thompson Enterprises for $1.4 million. They kept 12 of the 23 employees, the ones with actual skills and good performance records. The rest, including Ethan, were let go. Dad and Mom sold their house in March. They moved into a rental condo in Aurora. Dad got a consulting gig through an old industry contact, making $95,000 a year. A significant drop from the $240,000 he'd been pulling from the company. Ethan moved in with his girlfriend. Last I heard, he was working as a project manager for a mid-sized logistics firm, making $110,000. About a third of his Thompson Enterprises salary. My family didn't speak to me for 6 months. Then in September 2025 I got an email from Dad. Marcus, I've spent the last 6 months angry. At myself. At the situation. Your mother and I lost our home. Ethan lost his career trajectory. The family is fractured. And I kept telling myself it was your fault for being vindictive. But last week I was doing a consulting project and saw the same patterns I'd ignored at Thompson. Executive overspend. Nepotistic hiring. Margin degradation. And I gave the client the same advice you tried to give us. Cut costs, hire for competence, focus on sustainable growth. The client thanked me and said I'd probably saved their company, and I realized you tried to save ours. 4 years ago. With $2 million and a contract that should have focused us on performance. And instead of taking that seriously, we took your money and kept making the same mistakes. You didn't destroy Thompson Enterprises. We did. You just stopped subsidizing our incompetence. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to fix our relationship. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to teach us. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to learn it. Dad. I sat with that email for a week. Then I replied. Dad, thank you for this. It means more than you know. I didn't want to destroy the company. I wanted you to succeed. When you didn't, when you couldn't, I enforced the contract because that's how business works. Actions have consequences. Performance matters. Accountability isn't optional. Grandma taught me that. She also taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when things are hard. Who believes in you when others don't. Who tells you the truth even when it's painful. You didn't do those things for me. For 7 years you let Ethan mock me while I was secretly helping you. That hurt. Still hurts. But I appreciate this email. I appreciate that you're learning. And maybe, eventually we can rebuild something. Not what we had, that's gone, but something more honest. Marcus. He replied the next day. I'd like that. We started having lunch once a month. Just the two of us. No Mom. No Ethan. No rehashing the past. Just two people trying to build something new. Mom reached out in November. She apologized for enabling Ethan, for dismissing my career, for not defending me. We had coffee. It was awkward but sincere. Ethan never apologized. According to Dad, he still tells people I destroyed the family business out of jealousy. That I'm a vindictive failure who got lucky with Grandma's money. I don't care. Let him tell his version. The financial records tell the truth. My consulting practice did $2.4 million in 2025. I hired 3 more consultants. Expanded into Utah and New Mexico. Spoke at 6 industry conferences. Got featured in Forbes for an article on operational efficiency in small manufacturing. I also started a foundation with some of Grandma's original investment money. It provides business education and microloans to young entrepreneurs from families that don't believe in them. Kids who get called failures by people who should be supporting them. Every loan comes with the same terms. 8% minimum annual returns, quarterly reporting, and consequences for underperformance. Because that's what Grandma taught me. Believe in people but require accountability. Give people chances but not unlimited chances. And when someone shows you who they really are, whether that's Ethan wasting your investment or Dad finally learning from his mistakes, believe them. My brother called me a failure living off Grandma's memory. He was wrong about the failure part. But he was right about one thing. I am living off Grandma's memory. Every single day. By building something that matters. By holding people accountable. By refusing to let anyone make me small. And by teaching others that the people who call you a failure are often the ones most afraid of their own incompetence being exposed. Thompson Enterprises is gone. My relationship with Ethan is permanently damaged. My parents and I are slowly rebuilding trust. But I'm not the family failure anymore. I'm the one who taught them what failure actually looks like. And I'm the one who survived it.